for this?
It's actually, Eileen, do you want to hit record over there? And we'll go ahead and get started. Great. Welcome, everybody. It's so happy to see you all here. Happy almost Purim. My name is Rebecca Missel, and I am the Director of Partnerships and Operations here at Haggadot.com. And I'm so excited to be here with all of you and with my colleague, our founder and executive director, Eileen Levinson.
Hello, welcome.
And we are delighted to make our official, unofficial kickoff to the Passover 2021 season with all of you this afternoon or morning, depending on where you are. And I just wanted everybody, as we're getting in and getting settled and sort of shifting our sort of mindsets and selves from this moment of excitement over Purim and kind of shifting out of the winter and into the spring, I just wanted to invite everybody just to take a quick deep breath together. Just to like take a moment. Just to help us sort of cross over the threshold into this space. Thank you. So with that, today we are gathering to consider how we might fall back in love with or rekindle our love for the Seder. Eileen and I spend all year thinking about Passover to some extent, so we have like a pretty solid love relationship with it, but we know that for everybody else, it can be a lot of work. And so we're just excited to be here with you. As I said, we are both part of Haggadot.com, which is a nonprofit organization that invites every Jew, regardless of their background, to find a place for themselves in the Passover story so that they can create more meaningful, personal, and connective Seders. This is a quick little preview of our website. We're going to dive into the site in just one moment, but I want to sort of give the overview first, and then we'll shift over to look there. Haggadot.com is a project of custom and craft Jewish rituals, and we are a design lab for the Jewish community where we experiment with technology, new media, and video to imagine new formats for engaging with ancient traditions. And I'm seeing that a lot of friends are still joining us, so maybe we'll take a quick second. If you want to share in the chat, I'd love to hear from folks, maybe just a word about what you're hoping to learn this afternoon or today, and maybe that'll give everybody else a quick moment to join us. So if you want to, thank you, share what you're hoping to learn today. We will have time for questions at the end, but it's always nice just to see what people are excited to dive into. So if you want to post that into the chat, great. How to create my 2021 Seder, how to use the website, check and check. We are going to cover those things, I promise you. Other things that are calling to you today, make it more interactive for a virtual Zoom. Great techniques for a shorter Seder. I'll say, as this is a plug in advance, that we will be doing another webinar next week called Breaking the Seder Rules. And that's going to be all about playing with the structure of the Seder. And how you can mix up the order or play with just a 10-minute Seder, or to get away from that same boring Seder online again and again. Love it. These are all great answers. Hi, Renee. Thanks so much. Great. So with that, I'm going to give you sort of this is our layout, our map for this afternoon. We are going to do a quick tour of the Haggadot.com website, and that'll answer a chunk of the questions that folks had. Then we'll really dive into what it means to host our Seders in 2021 and think really about what do we need from Passover now, right? How do we make this year meaningful? You know, I don't know that a year ago, you know, when Eileen and I started doing these webinars, if we thought we'd be here hosting a conversation about Zoom Seders again, and yet we are here. And how do we kind of recognize that moment and hold it, and then make this, still figure out how to make this meaningful? And then we'll dive into some technical tips and answer your questions. So with that, I am going to share my other screen. Great. So here we are on the Haggadot.com website. And this is just our landing page, haggadot.com, and this is where you'll get started. We recommend that you create an account on the site, and that allows you access to everything that the site has to offer. We'll talk about it more a little later on, but we are a nonprofit organization. We love it if you can donate, but if that's not accessible for you right now, everything that you see on the site is free to use. And that's really important to us, that making sure that everyone has the chance to make a meaningful personal Passover Haggadah and a meaningful Seder is really core to our mission. So when you arrive here, you'll click on, if you'd like to start by making a Haggadah, you can come here. You can also browse our featured Haggadot, and these are the ones that we've really picked out because they're the most popular, they're the most beloved, and they really represent a wide range of different Passover experiences. So for those who are looking for that short, little kid-friendly version, that's going to be on Zoom. The Dayenu Seder is wonderful for that. Also, we have other Seders in here for people with families with young children, a coloring book version. A lot of folks love the comedy Seder. We just added a new skit to it that is close to my heart, talking about our sourdough starters. If you're like me and you started a pandemic sourdough starter, what does that sourdough starter have to do with Passover? Go into the comedy Seder and you'll see more. I'll also just show really quickly, some of our Haggadot are available. You can click on them and you can download them as they are. You'll be able to download those. You'll just see here, you can click on donate and make a donation. You can also just click over to download. I recommend trying to download in a portrait mode. Sometimes that's a little bit easier, and we always recommend downloading, and I'll say this again later on, the Jews did not technically crash the internet during Passover last year, but it's always possible. So I recommend downloading your Haggadah and having it available as a PDF that you can share your screen during your Seder. And portrait mode, yes, thank you, also has larger type and makes it a lot easier for everyone to see. And you can also download it in portrait mode as a Word document if you want to add in anything else or do any additional formatting. We're really excited this year to share a new feature. Some of our featured Haggadot, like this one here from our partners at Jubelong, is available to use as a template. And you'll see that here at the top when you click on that Haggadah. And it means that in addition to being able to use our standard Haggadot, Rabbi Schaefer, if you can let us know which link didn't work. I know one of the Zoom links had an issue. Hopefully it got fixed during the course of the day. The Haggadah template, you can use any of our Haggadot as now is featured as a template, which means you can edit it and make it your own. You can add your own title, invite your friends and family to collaborate with you, and you can control whether it's public, which means other people could use it or could see it, or private, which is a great option if once you're done making your Haggadah and if you don't want anybody else to be able to see it. Yes, there was a question about portrait versus landscape mode. The visuals here on the site are going to come up as as landscape here. But when you download, it is a little bit easier and bigger to read in the portrait mode. So in addition, we have other Haggadot. I've been sort of finding myself called to this one. That's just illustrations. If you just want to fill in your own words and leave a lot to interpretation, I think this is a great option. It's also, the illustrated Haggadah is a great place to go if you have a Haggadah that you've started with that's all text and you want to add some images. These are some really lovely images that you can add into your Haggadah. I'm going to check and see if there's any. So, and then so there's a question about booklet mode. So booklet mode, I would say, is when we are back gathering in person, I think booklet mode is a fantastic option to be able to print it out, and then you can fold it up like you would a booklet and it will sort of play into each other like that. It folds up into quarters, and it's a great option for in person. I think digitally, I recommend adding them as I recommend downloading it and doing it that way, or printing it from the PDF or Word document. These images, so it's an interesting question. You're asking about copying and pasting. So I'll show you. So let's say I want to add this Shulchan Orech photo. I am personally a large fan of matzo ball soup. So what I can do is if I click on that, I'll show you one more time. If you're in Haggadah where you like these images, you can click on this little plus sign, and that will allow you to add it to your Haggadah. Obviously, our Haggadah library, this is our admin account that I'm currently logged into. It has a lot more in it than your Haggadah library will have, but you can add it into any Haggadah. So let's say maybe I want to add it to the secular Haggadah, and it will default add it in this Shulchan Orech section, which is the meal section. But you can also switch it and move it into, maybe you want to move it into Tzafun, which is usually where we talk about the Afikomen. You can move it anywhere you want there, but you can add that clip, and then it will take you to, give it just one second. You can view the clip in that Haggadah. So this is the edit mode of the Haggadah, and I'm here in my Shulchan Orech section, and there's my clip. So that's how we sort of think about copying and pasting. If you want to download an image, which is sort of how you might also think of it, you can just download a single image there and click on download there, and that is also a way to do it. What's great then is you can, but like I said, most folks use it by downloading, by mixing and matching a whole Haggadah and downloading that. You can also save a clip. So let's say you don't know quite yet how you want to use it or which Haggadah you're going to do, but you came across this and you're like, oh, okay, this is a good thing. You can just click save, and that will add it to your library. Eileen, anything else we want to cover here on the site before we move on? Great, yes, thank you. Good idea, right. So we have our full tutorial there. I'll also share really quickly our FAQs. The tutorial, the How It Works page has a lot of great videos if you want just a quick refresher on how to do these different pieces of using the site. And you can also go to the FAQs, and that'll have a lot of the answers. So I'd love to show you one more thing, which is about how to use our clip library. So there's a couple of different ways to do that. First, I can, in my Haggadah here that I'm working with, this is just a secular Haggadah, but it can be any one that you want. You can add a clip. And when you click on that, it'll take you to this sort of pop-up screen, and it gives you a few options. So one, it'll have my clips. These are the ones that you've saved or that you've created. I'm sorry, these are the ones that you've created. So obviously we have a lot here because this is our admin account where we host a lot of things. There's ones that you've bookmarked. So this would be the section where if you've saved something, so if I saved that Shulchan Orech, it would clip that would pop up here. And then there's also community clips, which are ones that other folks have contributed. So let's say I really like this Seder plate image. I'm going to click select, and you'll see there that it says add selected clips 1. If I want to do one more, I can select 2, hit add. And now both of those clips will appear in my Seder. And I can move them around. I can switch between, I can move this here above that, or I can move it to a different section. So maybe I want to move this one actually, come back. I want to move this into Kadesh and then it'll appear down in Kadesh. Where did it go? There it is. Great. There was a question about the difference between community clips and bookmarked clips. So community and my clips. So my clips, again, are ones that you've created. I won't get into our library because this is, again, our admin account and it's quite large. But let's say you made a clip with, you uploaded a picture of your family or a song that you really love, and that's been saved in your library. You can see those clips there. And if the community clips are ones that other folks have contributed. Is that right, Eileen? Is that the more precise distinction there?
Yeah, that's right.
Great. So yeah, any other questions about using the site?
Rebecca, why don't you just show them the clip, the Haggadah library page?
Sure.
How you could search for based on section and content
Great,
and
great
category.
Great idea. So within this is just haggadot.com, and then I've just clicked on Haggadah library here at the top. You can search either for clips or Haggadot, and you can filter it by sections, categories of the clip, or type of the clip. So let's say first I want to look at Yachatz, and I want something that's an image. And I just hit apply, and it'll search for anything related to Yachatz that has an image in it. And those will appear here. And you can sort those by featured. You can sort them by the most recent or most popular, which means just how many times it's been downloaded. You can also search, like I said, whole Haggadot. You can search for a clip. Maybe you want a clip about Dayenu. And again, it'll search there for that. And yes, there are videos. So as far as, yes, I'll show you really quickly. Here is videos. And the tutorials on the site will show you how to create your own video clips if you'd like, but you can filter if you're really interested in a video clip to add to your Seder.
And since we can talk about how to use the site, there's so many different ways to talk about how to use the site that I think we're going to hold on some more of the site specific questions until the end, because I know a bunch of folks are eager to also get some new Seder ideas for 2021. So we can always stay on a little bit after and show some extra parts of the site after that.
Great segue. Thank you. So I'm going to bring us back to the presentation and we will dive back into it. Great, thank you. So we really want to kind of bring folks into, as far as the actual, how we're going to put together our Seder. We believe in always starting, in a very Simon Sinek way, starting with why, right? What is your purpose for your Seder? Because once you know that purpose, that will help you determine how and when you'll gather, for how long, what you'll eat, what you'll read, who you'll be with, whether you're with a family or a pod in person, or you're with a larger group on Zoom or a hybrid. Some possible purposes that we thought of that might be good, and you can put your own in the chat just because it's great to give inspiration to other folks. Maybe your purpose is to celebrate reaching this moment. It's been a challenging year, and this is like a really great time to lift that up. Maybe it's because, like, if you're like a lot of us, you are maybe feeling a little disconnected from the rhythm of time. It's like Fifth Tuesday right now, I think, and 7th March, and having a Seder is a Passover Seder is something that we do with this real deep connection to Jewish time and the rhythms of seasons, especially here in the Northern Hemisphere, and I'm in the Northeast US. And the snow is slowly starting to melt, and it is feeling like spring is almost here. And also another purpose might be to tell our stories and find comfort in rituals, whether traditional ones or new. And we're going to actually talk about some new rituals. So part of being hosting with purpose means being a host. So hosts wield a lot of authority, and part of your opportunity in hosting is to use that authority generously. So you'll want to consider how you might set the rules for being in a temporary world, even if that is on Zoom, right? How do you begin your Seder with a transition, right? We took a deep breath together. You may want to all sing a song or have music playing when people join. Think about your table design, a dress code. If everybody's wearing white, for example, or if everybody's wearing pajamas at the other end of the spectrum, how does that kind of bring us all into relationship with each other? You may also want to invite everyone to have something on hand that's an object or a photo with personal meaning. You may want to invite people to share their stories during the Seder at different moments, and to have activities around alternative Seder plate items. Last year, we did a whole piece, and it's on our blog, about alternative Seder plates and incorporating spices to represent the creativity of the Jewish people and all different kinds of things. So again, with your purpose in mind, you can really think about how those different pieces fall into place. It's super important, especially after this year, to remind your guests that none of us are just a square on a screen, right? Like, I think as Jews, we often tend to sort of live our lives above the neck to begin with. And now with so many Zooms, it's accelerated this sense of not having our full bodies, but the Seder is such an amazing opportunity to engage with our sight, our smell, taste, touch, sound. You can use video or musical instruments during your Seder. You can also, if you don't play music, use silence and breath, and think about how that can help set the tone and also set a rhythm for the Seder. It's also great to give everybody a role, and to think about either using the site to collaborate on a Haggadah together, or to invite people to bring something else as a part of their Seder, and just to honor this, that this is whoever is at your Seder, it is a special group who will only gather as exactly this group in this way, this one time, and that's really important and beautiful to hold up. So I think a lot of us are sort of holding this sense of what is it that we need from Passover now in 2021, and what does this really sort of, what is it that we need to get out of the Seder as much as the Seder needs from us, right? So I really spend a lot of time thinking about what are the rituals that we can incorporate to bring our whole selves to the Passover table. I think the more that we can sort of lean into vulnerability, rituals, this is exactly what rituals are designed to do. They emerge as a response to our needs, especially in times like these where there is so much uncertainty. That rituals are a way to bring intention, attention, and repetition to our lives, and that all of us here, we have the power and the creativity to make rituals that are authentic to our lives and needs. So again, as we're sort of going through, if you have intentions of your own for hosting your Seder, it's a great thing to think about, and what new rituals you need. I'm going to guide through a few that we've talked about and are really interested in exploring, but you may take these as inspiration for your own. So one place to think about where you might want to bring in these rituals around vulnerability is in orchats, right? The first hand washing doesn't have a blessing. We get up, we wash our hands twice during the Seder. That first time, there is no blessing. So maybe this is a moment where you want to add or create your own blessing, right? A blessing, some people, for example, our friends in Texas right now have not had access to water so consistently this winter. It is a blessing to have fresh, clean running water to wash our hands and the ability to access that. And maybe that's what we want to bless in this moment. Maybe it's just that, in this year where we've been washing our hands so, I don't want to say religiously, but consistently, that it's a way to sort of bring us up into that moment. Another time earlier in the Seder where we want to think about potentially bringing in new rituals is during the maror, which is the bitter herbs, and then what comes immediately after, the korech, which is the AKA Hillel sandwich. And that's where we mix the haroset and the horseradish on the matzah. And I think of this as a moment where we can both consider and maybe go, during our Seder, to go around and discuss, what does it mean to consume bitterness, right? Like, a lot of us are feeling frustrated or angry that we're still in this space at this time. What does it mean for us to literally ingest bitterness, but then also mixing it with sweetness, right? And what does it mean to, at the same time, embrace life and find peace? I love these skits from last year. The folks at Reboot and Tasty put together the Saturday Night Seder featuring some of our favorite celebrities, and that video is still online, and you can watch that either during your Seder or to get psyched up for your Seder. Maybe you have it on in the background as you're preparing for your Seder meal. There's also, like I said, our comedy Seder has lots of skits and songs and parodies. And I think those are really wonderful and like light and fun ways to find help and comfort. If you're like a lot of us, we find, you know, comfort in humor. Other places where we can look to are Kiddush, right? Our Seder is structured with these 4 sort of guideposts of the Kiddush, of the 4 glasses of wine that guide us through the evening. And so you can use each of those moments. Maybe if you've got families coming together on Zoom, maybe it's a family toast, or if you've got folks who are celebrating solo that joining you on Zoom, that you can make a time before each Kiddush for a guest or for the host to make a toast. And you can toast to togetherness, to the joys we found in the midst of chaos, right? You can toast to just being here and you know, having this like sort of Shehechianu moment that we've come through for the last year. I think Shehechianu at the beginning of the Seder is another really wonderful place to incorporate this. It feels a little different this year to be, what does it mean to, you know, arrive at this time in this season? Another activity, so we did during the high holidays, an activity based on roses and thorns. So if you've done this, a lot of people do it at their Shabbat dinner table each week. Sort of what is something that you want to give a rose to, something that was wonderful in the last week, and something that was a thorn that kind of like stuck you a little bit. So that you can adjust, you can sort of adjust that to a Passover theme with the idea of miracles and plagues, right? So after reading those 10 plagues, we dip out the wine. Maybe take some time to recognize a plague of the last year. Maybe that plague is, for me, I think the plague has been in part the Zoom disconnection being slow and my video sort of getting stuttered. And to lift up a miracle, I will say that same Zoom has allowed me to reconnect. My cousins and I have been doing monthly Saturday night Zoom game nights, right? And that's actually been like an incredible miracle that we live all over the country. We're pretty far apart in age, and we've been able to really reconnect in this time. So like a webinar that we are halfway through, but we've got lots of time left here to talk and answer questions. But before we get to that, it's important to remember for your webinar that ending well and closing well matters, right? Every gathering, even if it is a 10-minute Dayenu Seder, every gathering has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And you don't want to end that gathering with logistics, right? In the before times, those logistics might have been, okay, the dishes go in the dishwasher, or leave it, I'll take care of it later, right? And I think in Zoom times, those logistics are like, oh, okay, are you going to sign off? Am I going to sign off, right? Like, what's going to happen? And it gets a little awkward. And we love the idea of sort of giving details about what happens next, if anything, having that sort of schmooze time, thanking everybody, and then closing with purpose. It's the last opportunity for your guests to make meaning, to reflect on the experience. You can, again, sing together. Singing on Zoom is a bit of a challenge, but sometimes I think the chaos is a little bit fun. You can take a closing breath together, make a group toast, next year in person. Eileen and I will model a closing ritual that we began last year, and we're excited to bring back this year for how we close our webinars. So you'll see that in a little while. Some other tips, just sort of technical tips that I think most folks know at this point, but it's still really good just as a refresher. Gallery view is wonderful, especially if you're in a small group of fewer than 12 people, because you can see everyone on one screen. So to welcome people as they arrive in your Zoom room, if that's how you're gathering. You can invite your guests as Haggadah collaborators, and you can, and we showed how to do that on the site. And if you have questions, it's there in the tutorials on the site as well. You can also use the interactive view to play videos on the site, but it's also always a good idea, again, because you never know when the Jews are going to crash the internet, to have those videos queued up on whether you're using Vimeo or YouTube, just to have them open in your browser if you're the host, just as a sort of a theater kind of tech uh, covering your tush, measure. Um, I think it's great for the host to be the screen sharer, and you can always share in a way that has the screen on one side and everybody's images on the other. Or you can have people download their own copy of the Haggadah to follow along if you have a second monitor to follow there. This is also a great time to pull out that iPad or a tablet, and that people can use their tablet for the physical, following of the Seder, and then to have this as a to have the screen there as a backup. So just I'm seeing a couple of questions speaking of backups around. Yes, you never know when guests are going to have trouble with Wi-Fi, and yeah, and that screen sharing can be a little challenging sometimes, depending on what devices people are on. They may not be able to see all of your screens, and so again, we've got some tips on the site, but also you can use that. Sharing your Haggadah with everybody, and they can follow along on a second screen at home. And yes, having videos and links ready before is wonderful. Sharing links if people need it. You want to think about your lighting. I'm lucky. It's about 1:30 in the afternoon here, and so I've got my natural light coming in still. I've got my plant in the background, my pandemic plant hobby featured here. You want to think about the camera angle, and knowing also when to mute and unmute people, especially if you're gathering with little ones. Having that mute feature is wonderful, depending on the time of the Seder, where you are in that structure. Maybe there's you can also, I would say, feel free to do a 10-minute version, 20-minute version with the little ones, where they're loud and wild and running around and everybody's screaming and yelling and in the best way possible. And then an hour later, the adults can come back together and have a kid-free Seder that maybe has those other elements that they want to use, or you can mix them up together. But just to recognize that those things, it's okay not for everything for there to be a one size fits all. And finally, this idea of using the frame of our Zoom calls as a theater. So to play and perform, we have a lot of ideas. Like I said, the skits on the website are always really, really popular, and you can use that to act out and share that in advance with people and have them wear costumes or have props and get into it. And that can be a really fun way to enjoy the evening. Just a few notes about some upcoming webinars. We have a lot going on, but these are some of our favorites coming up that we'd love for you to check out. All of the webinars are available on our website, and we'll share that with you before we leave today. And it'll come in the follow-up email with the recording of this webinar. But next Tuesday, we have a Breaking the Seder Rules. So if today has inspired you to give yourself permission to abandon the structure of a traditional Seder, and you want to try something totally different this year, maybe this is the year you do a backwards Seder or a pajama Seder or a 7th night, 8th night Mimuna Seder. This is the year for it, right? This is the year to just try something totally different. And so that webinar will give you all kinds of ideas about how you can dive into that world. Next Thursday, we are going to be joined by Mark Gerson, also known as The Rabbi's Husband. He has a pretty popular podcast, and he has a new book called The Telling. It's a book after our own hearts. It is a book all about why Passover Seders are the essential Jewish ritual, and how Seders are really a roadmap for all of our Jewish rituals. So that's going to be a really exciting session next week. And if you and there's a special offer for the book, which I think Eileen will talk about. And then on the 17th, we have a webinar really thinking about spaces and creating liberated spaces in our homes, and what does it mean to clean out our spiritual chametz? What does it mean to have those sort of like refreshing, Passover is fundamentally, it's a springtime holiday, and it's about renewal and rededication in that way. How can we make the spaces around us feel that way too? And then I love this, we're just getting this onto the site in the next few weeks. It'll be a stream anytime meditation workshop with Alison Lecter, who's an incredible meditation teacher. and she'll be guiding us through some reflection, some written meditations, and some breath work around the idea of finding your inner Pharaoh and releasing them and kind of coming to grips with them. So I think that that's something that a lot of us will need after this past year. And you can register for all of those are listed with the exception of the meditation one, which will share, the stream will be available on the site. But all those other workshops are, you can register for them here on the site. And with that, I'm gonna stop sharing and open up if people want to post questions in the chat. This is a great moment to do that. And we'd love to help you. We love to brainstorm. We love to troubleshoot. So any kind of questions, we welcome them.
So while you're getting your questions together, I want to introduce myself again. My name is Eileen Levinson. I am the founder of Haggadot.com. And I want to explain why we ask for donations. And I'm going to ask you for a donation. Our entire site is supported by users. So there's a lot of organizations in the Jewish world where they have some big donors that might give thousands and thousands of dollars to support their budget and pay everybody's salaries. We're only able to support the site and pay for Rebecca's time and all of the developers who work on the site by the donations that you provide when you use the site. The reason we don't charge to use the site is because I believe that everybody should have free access to this material, and not everybody has the money for it. And so I think that you pay what you feel that you can pay. In some years, you might not be able to pay anything, and some years you might be able to pay more. But it's important that we ask. And this year in particular, Mark Gerson, who just wrote the book, The Telling, that we're going to have a conversation with next week, he has generously offered to donate books for all donors who give $54 or more before Passover. You're going to get a free copy of his book. So I'm going to add the link in the chat. And again, please consider supporting us. And with that, let's take some questions.
Yeah. I'm gonna scroll back up and see if anything else came in while I was chatting. Oh, we got something. 2 young kids attending a virtual Seder. Yes, Zoom fatigue is real. So how do we get 6-year-olds to participate in a way that's also engaging for parents? To me, I think it's the giving everyone a role is a really wonderful way to do that. It could be that you're cooking together, either, making maybe some of the Seder foods together during the Seder, not the webinar. During the Seder is an opportunity to engage in that way. Also always great to involve kids in getting involved by leading parts of the Seder. 6-year-olds, they may or may not know the full Manish Tana yet, but maybe it's an opportunity. What are the 4 questions that they want to ask about Passover? 6-year-olds have lots of questions in my experience, and that is a great way to engage them with the Seder. And then also just to keep it fun. I think that it's great. Yeah, the coloring book Haggadah is wonderful. We have a family favorites too, I'll pull up. And I think both of those can really give you us, I think they're a good starting point to dive into whatever it is that's gonna engage those kids. And and to let them feel like they're in charge a little bit too is great.
I'll also add that I think having low expectations for kids is the way to go, right? Think about the most important thing that you want kids to participate in. Like if you're only going to get their attention for 5 minutes, especially if you're on Zoom, if you're doing a hybrid Seder or some sort of COVID-friendly situation where there's more happening in person, it might be different, and we could talk about that. But for kids being on Zoom, and I know a lot of the grandparents out there, you might only get to see them on Zoom. Think about the one Seder ritual you want to do with them. Is it the 4 questions? Is it singing Dayenu together? Is it or do you want to do like the activity, like the plagues and the miracles activity? I think if you just, set the expectation, you just want to get one thing, one special moment with them, that's a good place to start. And then they can color, they can make masks, they can make skits. Skits are really great for kids, but go easy on them.
I put some links in the chat. There was a question about families with non-Jewish family members. I put in the chat our minimalist Haggadah because it's really streamlined and straightforward. And then it's a great jumping off point if you want to add things to it. Also, the secular Haggadah is great. There's also a number of organizations. If you go to I'll share this link in the chat as well. If you go to our contributors page, there's some folks from organizations like Reform Judaism and B'Kol Hashon that both have a lot of clips that are geared to a broader audience, and that may be of interest to people who have come from multi-faith backgrounds.
And I'm sharing a link for tips for searching for the Afikomen on Zoom, or if you're not in the same place. We had a lot of great ideas last year. So, one idea is that you could play like a 20 questions game so that they can guess where in the world the Haggadah might be. So that's another great way to engage the kids. I also want to talk about copyright because I saw a question about that. So when you share content on the site, you're agreeing to our terms of use, and you can find that on our website. You can find a link to that in our footer. You're saying that you have the right to share this content, that you've either originally created it or you have permission from the author. I know that's not the case for everything, and especially when we're making our Haggadahs at home just for our own use, we're copying and pasting from all sorts of Haggadahs. If you want to add something that is copyrighted, make it private. That means you're not sharing it with other people. You're only sharing it with your family. It's not going into our larger library. And we read everything on the site to review. And if we see copyrighted content, we also notify the person who posted it, and we make it private so that we're not violating any copyright rules. When you share something that is original on the site that you have permission to share, and all of the content that's already on the site is shared under Creative Commons licensing. And that's basically something that lets people share their ideas and their creativity, but you're agreeing as the user of that material not to use it for any commercial use. Like, you're not going to go make a Haggadah and sell it on Amazon with any of this content, or print it on t-shirts or any of that. So that's generally what we ask in terms of copyrighted or sharing images. Only share what you know you have the rights to, and keep it private if you don't have the rights to it, just like, as if you were sharing it just at home with your family.
Great question. Other questions about whether it's structuring your Seder, who's coming to your Seder, ideas? Like I said, we love to troubleshoot and brainstorm. Oh, somebody had asked about a JPEG. So your Haggadah is available to download as either a PDF or a Word document. You can upload images as either JPEGs, GIFs, however you want to pronounce it, and PNG files, and then JPEG with the E in it files. Those are all, they're usually smaller images, just because we can only accommodate so many big pieces. An individual picture like the matzo ball picture, you can download that. It will come out, though, as a PDF or as a Word document, and that's done to protect the folks who create the site. So generally people don't, if you're asking so that you can like copy and paste, the goal is for you to use those images in a Haggadah, or just to download one image, if that makes sense.
I want to talk a little bit more about how do we use our bodies during the Seder, because that's something for me that's really important. I know Rebecca talked about it. there, one thing that's really interesting, because we're going to be in different places. Some of us are going to be at home. We can do things that we might not normally do during the Seder. Like we can stretch. We can do a little bit of modified yoga, even if it is chair yoga, or just, taking time to like reach our hands in the air. We had a lot of fun last year thinking about how our Zoom screen is still like our own little stage, and we can move forward and back. And I'm thinking of like, you can also, choose when you want to be on camera or not. And breath is really powerful. I think as Rebecca led us in that taking a breath in the beginning, I find that like, I'd say earlier in the pandemic, we were very rushed, we were very anxious, and now we're and so that breath was a time for us to calm down and make ourselves feel more present. Now I think that breath is really a time for us to gather some energy and really like remind ourselves that this is still special time that we're creating. And even though this has been a long year, we are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and we can gather strength. And if it means you remind yourself to sit up a little bit straighter sometimes, these are all ways that you can think about how your body is still present in space.
There was a question around, I'm going to sort of tackle two of these at once. So one was around the hybrid, actually, I'll do one really quickly first. You can add your own image on the cover if you save your image. If you draw something online and you want to upload it, you can upload that again in any of those file formats and put that as your cover image. So that was just that one real quick. There was a question about hybrid when you've got some folks in person and some folks on Zoom. I think it's always a challenging sort of logistical piece. And then there was a question also about long songs. I am not a long song fan, so I am happy to say there are lots of shorter song parodies on the site. I'll share some songs listings on here. But Eileen, if you want to, in the meantime, talk about the hybrid in-person Zoom.
I think that I imagine a lot of Seders are going to be like little pods connected by Zoom, where there might be a few people at one family is together, and maybe there's somebody at a table like 6 feet away or maybe nearby who's been vaccinated, and you've got your laptop, and then you've got another family on Zoom. And think about how you can use that to your advantage. Are there little games where you're finding the afikomen in each pod? There's a little, or you're still playing the Zoom, a game of questions. How can each location take on a different part of the Seder and lead a different part? You can also think about, are you on your laptop, or are you on your tablets? Do you show that your guests in other areas what your space looks like? I think especially if you are doing a hybrid Seder, I'd recommend printing out your Haggadah so that you're not looking at what's on screen. Everybody can, then you're not dealing with screen sharing and looking at something and not appreciating the space that you're in. I think you can also really play with fun things like if you have two people that are helping to plan the Seder and you're at different locations. I always love the trick where you're like passing an object from one screen to another. Like if I could, give Rebecca this coffee cup and she pulled it in on her side, that could be a fun way to make you feel connected. Since we have time, look, Passover is 4.5 weeks away now. Think about what kind of objects you can mail to everybody at their different locations so that they can have it together. You do have enough time to take a Haggadah and print it out. And obviously you don't even need to mail it to them because everybody can print theirs out from the site at home. So yeah, I'd love to hear other suggestions of how people are thinking about doing their hybrid Seders.
And there was a question about the links and people, yes, we'll share some of the links in a follow-up message. And yes, if people don't have a printer, then I would say if you've got a person who doesn't have a printer and doesn't have like a tablet of some kind, those might be the folks for whom you want to print out a copy and send to them. That may be like the one or two people that you do that for. Games, love a games question. So the Afikomen, I think, is a classic game, like Eileen talked about earlier, around playing hot and cold, or where in the world is your Afikomen, which if you're like me and you were a Carmen Sandiego fan as a kid, I think that's a really fun one to play with. I would say also a lot of the family Haggadot on the site will have activities and that you can share and do with your family members. It's a great way to engage the kids in the Seder, as well as to have some games. You could play, there's always like those little 10 Plagues finger puppets. You can do activities or games around that. You can, I think, the skits lend themselves to being made into games really well too, that you can have people act out different parts of it. There's always a classic, you can always, pin the maror on the matzah kind of a thing. If you really want to get goofy with it, that's always an option. Oh, great. Somebody plays Pictionary, Passover Pictionary. Passover, I would guess like a win, lose, or draw, or a Passover charades could be really fun. Mm-hmm. I kind of like the charades one. I'm now tempted to suggest that to my Seder people.
Yeah, we like to play this game called Celebrity, and it's basically you put a bunch of names in a bowl, but you can still do this with like a Google Doc, and there's another website where you can do a bunch of names related to the Passover story, or I think even like famous Jews in history, or famous people from the last year, and everybody picks a name and then has to get the other guests of the Seder to guess that name without saying that person's name specifically.
Your place that describes how to play these games. Google will have some. I guarantee if you Google Pictionary, they'll have something.
I think for some of these games, we'll probably do a blog post. With some of this stuff, because I think that's going to be a common question this year. In general, I think this is why we're doing the breaking the rules next week. So I believe that if you want to have a totally traditional Seder, that is, I think that there's a lot of value in that, and you can use our website to make a fully traditional Seder. There's the traditional Haggadah on there. You could add everything that you want. Rebecca and I also believe in permission to do what's right for you, right? Like, we want you to have the holiday and feel good afterwards, and not feel like you stressed out for it and then you're just super exhausted and you're disappointed because it didn't go the way that you wanted it to. Like, use this opportunity to, yes, connect with Jewish tradition, connect with your family, but make sure that everybody gets something out of it that they want. And so that's why it's really important to, where you could give everyone a role, as Rebecca suggested, and have everybody help out to plan the Seder. You could assign everybody a section or one of the key things and said, you get to plan what we do for this part. We could do a traditional blessing and this, or maybe we just do this new thing that you've come up with. We don't, here for Haggadot.com, we don't believe in policing how you do holidays. We just want to offer inspiration and the tools to make it right for you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. There's a question about breakout rooms. Great question. So depending on what kind of a Zoom account you have, you can use breakout rooms. I think you may have to have a pro account. You may not. I'm not entirely sure. If you do have a pro account, yes, you can assign people to rooms in advance. It's an option when you set up the Zoom room. When you set up the Zoom meeting, there'll be a little button that says assign breakout rooms manually, or you can also do those once the Zoom starts. You can go in and look at your participants and assign rooms randomly, or you can assign specific people to different rooms during the course of your Zoom. And it's a great way to, if you are having I've been to a couple of, for example, like Zoom weddings. I think I've seen Zoom weddings do this really well, where they use a moment during the wedding to have people get together at like a table. So I went to one where there was one table just for my cousins and me, and one where it was my entire side of the family, and then the other partner's entire side of the family. I think there's also ways during a Seder, maybe it's like there's a kids table at the Seder, or a grandparents table at the Seder that you can play with the chat rooms, or East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, or mix those up. If you've got folks across different time zones, I think it's a fun way to mix and match the people at your table, proverbially or not.
Great. So we have time for, I think, one more question. So just you can, just as a reminder, so we're going to try to send as many of these links out as possible. But if we miss anything, chances are on our blog, you're going to, a lot of these resources that I shared were from our blog. Also make sure that you are signed up for our newsletter. So if you signed up today, we're going to send you our first couple newsletters, and obviously you can unsubscribe if you don't want to be on it, but there's a lot of information that we'll share with you through the newsletter. Somebody also asked about downloading. So all of the content, obviously you can download, you can print it home. We check our email regularly, especially as we get closer to Passover. If you email us, you will get a response within 24 hours. And if you have a problem, don't be shy, reach out and we'll help you fix it. Sometimes people click download and their download goes into a folder that on their computer, they can't find it. So, we can always send you another copy. We're real people who run the site. You're not going to get like lost somewhere. And so to access our blog, I'm just going to share the haggadot.com blog you can get to. And then also really important, so we made some tutorial videos on the site. And so anything that you want to know how to do on the site, there should be a video for how to do that. And if you have watched the videos and you still have questions, let us know, because we could probably make our videos better. So with that, I want to thank you so much for joining us. As we promised and we told you, we are not going to end with logistics, but we are going to end with a closing ritual. Our ritual that we developed last year, and also I want to give a real hand to Rebecca, who has been taking on so much more responsibility leading Passover this year, and she just joined our team before the pandemic last year, and she's doing so much. So big hand to her.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
Rebecca, lead us in a closing ritual.
Sure. So as promised, Eileen and I created this ritual last year. It's extremely complex. It's really tough. Lots of, super high barrier to entry. You're going to put your hands in. Everybody sort of put your hands forward. If you've not been on video, now's a great time to pop on your video. And you're going to put your hands in. And then on the count of three, this is like doing a cheer at the end of during a sporting event. And we're going to put our hands in, and then on the count of three, we're going to yell Seder. Very complicated, I know. All right, so here we go. I like how Rob just shifted camera. Well done. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, Seder. Awesome. Oh, that was so great. Thank you, everyone. We hope to see you at a future webinar, and we will be following up with a copy of the recording and a bunch of these links. Thank you all for being here.